Hello, friends. It is MG, your Reimagine strategist, and I just want to welcome you to the Reimagine You Lab podcast. And as always, you are in for a treat tonight. I've got an amazing guest that has joined us. And before we get started, I just always like to welcome you, first of all, but I always like to remind you to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, because I don't ever want you to miss a show. No, never wanted you to miss a show. And if you hit that wonderful button, it will notify you every time a new show comes on every Friday. Now, I also want to make sure that you remember to invite your friends, your family, a colleague to tune in and tune in with you, because there's always somebody here. We are always dealing with change, and we all know that change is just a choice. And when we're talking about change, we like to talk about it in the lab because you can reimagine you. So let's dive in. So, you guys know how we do. There's always somebody beautiful in the building with me, somebody who is here to talk about change, how they help people do it, how they have done it themselves. And today is no different. So, I would love to introduce you all to Miss Melissa Rolfs. And Melissa, you know how I do. I told you we're going to go beyond the bio. So, Melissa, tell everybody who you are, where you're at, what you do, and how you do it.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here, Michelle. As you mentioned, my name is Melissa Rolfs. I'm a wife, I'm a mom. We've got a 16-year-old daughter, 14-year-old son, and I'm a holistic health and life coach. And I get to help teen girls and women cultivate a healthy body image and positive relationship with food. And I'm in Phoenix.
Yay.
Sorry, I didn't mention that.
Phoenix, Arizona. I love Arizona. Even though we used to come to Arizona in the summertime, we talked about this a little bit before we came on. It was hot. It was very hot. And as a matter of fact, how warm is it in Arizona now?
We're
What
under a
kind of
heat
weather?
advisory, and I think it's like 122. So it's like
Holy
like, yeah,
macaroni.
roasting.
122. You know what? The weather patterns, even though they have changed, there's some things that you can count on in Arizona.
This
And
is true.
3 degree, 3-digit degree weather is a staple for the summertime in Arizona. Well, beautiful. Well, thank you for joining me today. I am excited about having you in the lab, excited about talking to you. I know that we had, I always talk about change with those that come into the lab, and thinking about what it is that you do, dealing with, helping young women, teen girls deal with healthy body image, like teen girls, healthy body image. Sometimes the two of those things don't go well together in a sentence. So, how did you get into that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was my own journey. So
Mhm.
the very quick overview for you, Michelle, is
Yes.
about 13 years ago, I was diagnosed with PTSD from childhood trauma. And that
Oh,
combined with being a new mom who was completely overwhelmed because my newborn wasn't sleeping through the night, our daughter
mhm,
having undiagnosed food allergies and sensory challenges, and my husband
mhm.
traveling for work, and me being exhausted and angry and overwhelmed, decided that I needed to make some changes. So
Yeah.
started going to a life coach, and then did therapy and met with a naturopath, learned about the impact of nutrition on overall mood and energy and health beyond just weight. And so,
Yeah.
as a result of my healing journey, decided to pay it forward and help others who were where I was. And for me, my food issue started in childhood. So that's how I got here.
No, you know what? That you said something right there, like PTSD from childhood trauma.
Mhm.
Like when I even start to even think about unpacking that,
Yeah.
because most of the time, the things that really kind of catapulted us into a change, there is, identifying something within us, which usually takes us on a path that will eventually help other people.
Yeah.
So no, that totally makes sense. How did you really or how do you, even in the path when you're, working with other people and stuff now, how did you get to a place where you were able to see? or even say, it was PTSD from childhood trauma? How did you put those two together? What was kind of that defining line or identifier for you?
It was a lot. I mean, it was kind of like sitting back and putting all the pieces together because the trauma was why I was hoarding food in my room as a little girl. It's why I was going for the Pop Tarts and the cookies and the candy and the sugary food to make myself feel better. That was very much a learned behavior from childhood, and that just carried throughout. So it wasn't really until I went to school and started to learn about coaching and how to support your body and nutrition and all these things that I thought I had an idea of going in, but really learned more. It was like, oh my gosh, like food was like my coping mechanism. So
Yeah.
that was because of the trauma.
Yeah. You know what? Food is definitely a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we all, figure that out at some point in time. You know what? I always ask the question, what was, how did change you? And when I asked you that question, you said it made me a better me.
Yeah.
How do you identify that better me compared to the okay me, or the me that I didn't know? When or how do you define the better me?
Mhm.
Let me ask you that.
Yeah, so I look back to like when my kids were little and how I treated them, and I was very short and I was very angry and I wasn't pleasant to be around, and I was exhausted and frazzled and didn't like how I was showing up and being for my family. It was a disservice to them. Whereas now I'm calm, I'm more patient, I'm not perfect at all, but I definitely have more energy, I'm more enthusiastic, I'm more present, I'm more content. I'm just wanting to be with them instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, you're so overwhelming.
No, you know what? But it does make a difference. You can
Mm-hmm.
really tell, like when you start working on yourself,
Yeah.
it makes your interactions with other people different. It makes the way that
Mm-hmm.
you feel about yourself different. And then that just kind of, matriculates all across, everything that you do. No,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. You know what? When you think about some of the differences that have been made, because I always think that change does make a difference, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it takes us a moment to really, either the change happens because I needed to make a change, and it's forced on me,
Mm-hmm.
or the change needs to happen and we lean into it. Which was it for you? Did you lean in, or was it like, what, I've got to make this change? I'm forced to make a change at this point.
I think it was both and. I felt forced, and then the forcing led me in.
I know, you know what, and that can be the case.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a bit of both. It can definitely be a bit of both. No, and you know what? So when you think about, like that force change, that causes you to lean in a little bit more, what were some of the things what was part of the force, and then what was the lean in like for you?
That's a good question. I think the force were the diagnoses. I think the PTSD diagnosis, and then I think our daughter's food allergies were the force. Like they were these things that we had been given that we either needed to accept and move forward with, or just be bitter and resist and not have it help us at all. So I think that was the force. But then I think the leaning in was, we made some changes and we saw a lot of positivity that came out of it. We saw, her behavior change, her health improved, my mood got better, I had more energy. So I feel like the leaning in was so positive and encouraging that we just kept leaning in, and it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it could be like this.
No, no, I think that is awesome. I think that is awesome. You know what? When you so like I dealt with food allergies with my son, my firstborn. He had like all of these things that were, like he went and we got the food allergy
Yep.
test, and it comes back and it's like, oh my god, this kid can't eat anything, like he's allergic to everything. And so like that was hard. I see you shaking your head, so like you experienced some of that too. You're like, oh my gosh, how do you deal with, with some of that? and you do, you're forcing, and then you kind of figure some things out. You
Yeah.
figure it out. I love Marie Forleo when she says
Yes.
everything is figure outable.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
telling
absolutely
my
love that.
children that.
Yeah,
It's so
that's what
helpful.
it is. It is. You know what? I use that every chance I get, or
Mhm.
every time I need it, I pull that out.
Yes. Yes. Because it
I
really
pull that
is. If you just stop and think about it, you can figure everything out.
You can. So you know what? I love you are a holistic health and life coach.
Mhm.
And you work with teen girls. You know what are some of the unique challenges what unique challenges do teen girls today face that impact their holistic health and well-being?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think one thing that they really have that our generation never had is social media. I mean, this is the
Oh
first
yeah.
generation of kids that have instant access to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I mean, whatever the new platform is coming out tomorrow, like they have this
Yeah.
constant
And surely there's
barrage.
something.
Yes, it
Yeah.
will be
It
telling
will.
them what to look like, what to eat, what not to eat, how to have clear skin, how to have better hair. Like it's just information overload. I think that's one thing. I think the other thing too is if the mom doesn't have a healthy relationship with food and her body, I think that there is that piece that is passed down because I believe that more is caught than taught. And so
Yeah.
that's where a lot of my food stuff came from what was modeled and what had been done before me and how the relationship with food was in the home. And so I think that's also a piece of it. So those two together can make it really, really interesting.
Yeah, no, no, I totally agree with that. And that modeling does make a significant difference.
Mhm. Yeah.
It does make a significant difference. I know in the past year, I even, started making some different health choices. As a matter of fact, I had, started seeing a, a nutritionist and was like, okay, I need to, because my health, my PCP in the eye, I said, hey, I want to lose weight. Let me know
Mhm.
about I want to, go and get a gastric sleeve, is what
Yeah.
I said.
Yeah.
And she was like, Michelle, I would not, when we moved here, I said, sign me up for it. Do you know somebody that you would recommend? And she had told me, she said, Michelle, I don't recommend surgeries. I don't
Mm.
recommend a lot of medications
Yeah.
and things like that. She said, but if you do want to lose weight, I can
Mhm.
help you,
Yeah.
but it'll be diet and exercise. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh my God, that wasn't the strategy that I wanted. But I said, okay.
Mhm.
And so, we started, and, like I had to check in with her, like it was this winter weight management. And so it was a lot of, the things that I was eating, and it was exercising. So I was, exercising about 45 minutes a day, doing some strength training and all that. So my daughters are college age. And so
Mhm.
when they came home at Christmas, I was down about 25, about 30 pounds. And they looked at me and was like, Mom, what are you doing? Like I look like a
Mhm.
different person. And I did, to me, I didn't notice it. I knew that I was losing
Yeah.
weight because I'm
Yeah.
looking at it every week and the scales getting lower,
Mhm.
but I didn't see it as differently as they did because, they see me,
Mhm.
30 pounds heavier and then all of a sudden 30 pounds smaller. And they're like, and it was like, so then they're like, well, what are you eating and what are you doing? So when they were home over Christmas break and they're eating the stuff, I'm like, I'm not eating rice. I'm
Yeah.
eating like, grated cauliflower, or I'm eating grated cabbage even. And they're like, and it was good, and so that modeling does make a
Mhm.
huge difference. I noticed, I was like, man, if only I would have had something different that I could have been doing for them years ago.
But you're
Um,
doing it now, and that's amazing. And
yeah,
they saw the change, and that's amazing. So congratulations.
yeah, thanks. So tell me this. So because I love the holistic health, and that
Yeah.
that's a really big piece of it. So how do you define
Mhm.
holistic health, and why do you believe that it's particularly important for teenagers?
Yeah, holistic is whole person. So it's looking at the
Yeah,
big picture, not just,
everything.
maybe the food piece, but it's also the lifestyle and the stress and all of the
Yeah.
pieces that make us up, because we're holistic beings. I mean, we've got
Mhm.
body, mind, and soul. They're all interconnected. And so I think that's why I love the holistic piece, because treating like the holistic me is what really helped me find freedom and healing on my journey. And I think that's why it's so important for these teenagers, because I don't want them to ever think they're just like siloed off and they can compartmentalize these things, because they're interconnected. And for me, when I learned how the nutrition affected the mood and the energy, and the gut kind of being the second brain, that changed everything. So
Yeah.
holistic all the way for me.
Yeah. No, I love that because you know what? Sometimes people misunderstand holistic as, oh, it's a type, like it's religious,
Yeah.
or it is, like it's a certain type of, and the holistic is really, like you said, it's the whole person. It's
Mm-hmm.
all of you.
Yeah.
It's physical, it's mental,
Mm-hmm.
it's everything about you. It's your emotional well-being, it's everything. No, I love that. I completely love that. So how do you approach like mental health and emotional well-being in your coaching?
Yeah,
Is
they're
that part of it too? Like, do you kind of
yeah.
deal with that?
Yep, huge pieces. And that's a lot of times what drives the behaviors in the relationship with food, is that we will have an emotional trigger and we feel like
Yeah.
we need to feel better. So we'll reach for the food because we don't know what else to do to feel better in that moment. So it's really giving tools and equipping and empowering on, these are things you can do when you feel overwhelmed, stressed. You want to reach for the cookies or the chips or the soda or whatever to kind of calm
Yes.
down.
Yeah. No, we need another coping mechanism. Don't let it be a cookie.
Yeah. Amen.
I know. Yeah, like give me something else. Give me something
Mhm.
else that can help me. Well,
Yep.
share with us if you don't mind, like a success story, where a
Mhm.
holistic health coaching made a significant impact on a teen's life. Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes people don't really know, how does it really help? Because a lot of
Mhm.
times, and I tell people all the time, coaches need coaches,
Yeah.
mentors need mentors,
Mhm. Yeah.
editors need editors, like everybody needs whatever it is that you are, like those people need those things too. But you know what? I think it's seeing the success stories and hearing people's testimonials of the success that they have had by getting the help and stuff that they need. So share a success story with us because sometimes, we think that, being a teenager is puberty and then you'll grow up and you'll be fine. You just get a little older and you'll be fine. And that's not necessarily the case. You can have help along that journey. So
Yeah.
if you don't mind, please share.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got to work with a woman named Abigail, and we started working together her senior year of high school. And what I love about Abigail is she had been in therapy for disordered eating. So she had done some therapy, she had worked through some things. And then at that point, she came to me for coaching. So the difference really between therapy is therapy focuses on the past and kind of working through and healing, whereas coaching focuses on where you're at and where you want to go and how to get there. And so she had done the therapy. She came to me. She struggled with binge eating when she was stressed and overwhelmed and just kind of burnt out. And as a high school senior, trying to get into colleges and figuring out where to go and what she wanted to do after school, there was a lot of stress and pressure going
Yeah.
on. So we started working together. And by the time we had finished coaching, she says that she is completely binge free. She doesn't need to go to food to feel better, to calm down. She's found other coping mechanisms and ways to do that. And it's awesome because now she just finished her freshman year at college. And I was able to
Right.
kind of work with her once a quarter through that transition, because they knew it was going to be hard going from high school to college. And she's doing phenomenally. Like, I am so proud of her. So she's amazing.
No, that's a great story, especially, going from high school to college. They say,
Yeah.
when you're a freshman in college, that freshman 15
Yep.
and all that kind of stuff. So no, that's great going in with some good habits and good coping tools and all that kind of stuff. That's a
Yeah.
great story. Great story. No, I really love that. I love that. Um, when I think about nutrition and how it plays, kind of a role in overall health of teenage girls and things like that, are there any like key dietary type recommendations that you would make? Are there any things that you would say, hey, here's a few just tips that I
Yeah.
would give, hey guys, these are some freebies.
Yeah.
Everybody listening in, here's some freebies from Miss Melissa.
Yeah.
You know, this is Coach Melissa that's going to share a few of these things with us. These are some nuggets that you guys listen in on.
Yeah, for sure. I think a couple of things that come to mind are make sure you're hydrated. A lot of times, sugar cravings can mimic dehydration. So make sure you're hydrated. The recommendation is half of your body weight in ounces of water. So if you weighed 150, you'd want to have at least 75 ounces of water per day. So hydration is one. No energy drinks. There is nothing good from those energy drinks. They are terrible for your overall health. They are terrible for everything. So please don't drink energy drinks. The next thing is really focus on eating foods that are whole in their most natural form, where you know where they came from, you understand what's on the ingredient label. So I think a lot of us from our generation have been trained to look at maybe the calories and the fat grams and the carbs. Yes, look at that, but also go beyond that. Look at the ingredients. What is actually in the food? Do you know what it is? Do you know where it came from? And focus on those foods that have less ingredients because they're going to have less processing. So really kind of a whole foods diet, fruits, vegetables, nuts, grass-fed meats, protein sources. Just make sure you're eating quality food. And then I think too, really helping them connect to their bodies and understand and honor hunger and fullness. I think a lot of times, especially with schools, schedules, we've been trained that we eat lunch at noon. And yes, in school, you might have to do that. But I think, again, breakfast is hard, but maybe dinner, like if they're more hungry than normal, that's okay. Let them eat. If they are less hungry than normal, just honor their fullness and let them eat when they're ready. So.
No, that is good. You guys, good tips right there. Hydration, half of your body weight in water.
Mm-hmm.
No energy drinks. That's a good one because I think people think that, hey, I need an energy drink to stay, fueled up so I can power through the day. But sounds like energy drinks are not the go-to or should not be the go-to.
No,
And
not
then
at
Whole
all.
Foods. I've been here, yeah, Whole Foods, like real food, Whole Foods. I hear foods with seeds in them. That's important. We do nutrition and wellness on Fridays, and Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Joyce Moore comes in, and she's been teaching and sharing with us. Get your foods that are whole foods, and Whole Foods a lot of Whole Foods have seeds. If it doesn't have seeds in it,
Yeah,
be a little leery. And then I like
absolutely.
that too. Connect to your body with hunger and
Mm-hmm.
fullness.
Yeah.
Kind of really listen to it for that.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, good stuff. Very good stuff. So talking as you're kind of sharing here, when I think about, teen girls and things like that, what kind of advice do you recommend, for parents that are looking to support their teen daughters, in achieving this holistic health? Because I think, I've got two daughters, and I know from a health perspective, I probably wasn't as engaged as I should have been. I wasn't paying as close attention as I wish I would have been to their whole health.
Yeah.
And so, how do we kind of lean into that? Because sometimes they look great on the
Mm-hmm.
outside,
Yeah.
or, you'll notice a change sometimes once it's too late,
Mm-hmm.
or after, you notice a change once, something, once they have gotten to a place. So
Mm-hmm.
what would you recommend, or what kind of advice would you give to
Yeah.
parents so that they can be real helpful to their teen daughters?
I think being curious instead of judgmental goes a long ways, not only with teenagers, but I think just in general, society
Yeah,
could be a little bit more curious, perhaps. Um,
yeah, yeah. That's a good term. I like that.
yeah.
Curious over judgmental.
Yeah. And I think just asking questions and seeking to understand can be really powerful because, the teenage brain is not fully developed. And so we're dealing with underdeveloped brains and hormones and emotions and all that goes into that. And then we're trying to converse, and oftentimes our come froms are completely different. So I think being curious and trying to understand where they're coming from is always incredibly helpful. And maybe even asking them, what do you need? How can I support you? Because I think one struggle too is if
That's good.
you do have teens that struggle with food and body image and you as a mom haven't had that struggle, you don't know what that's like. So it feels probably overwhelming and frustrating and, oh my gosh, I don't know how to help them. So that's where I think having somebody come alongside them, like a coach or a mentor or somebody who can help them with that, is always helpful, because I think people want to be understood, and it's really easy to understand something when you've been in it as opposed to when you've not been.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. I was just going to ask you, like, okay, give us an example of what does curious sound like
Mhm.
versus judgmental, because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't, I think sometimes parents come from, in their mind, their
Mhm.
intention
Right, of course.
is that they their intention is they're loving.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
this is coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
But the way that it comes
Yeah.
off is extremely judgmental. And so
Yeah.
sometimes they don't have the right language and they don't have the right words. And so yeah, good I wanted a good example there. And so you shared, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Um when you think about, can you discuss, like, is there importance of physical activity and how you encourage teens to maybe stay active in a healthy way?
Oh, yes. Physical activity is, I think, super important, obviously, because it not only helps with energy and mood and the brain, it just has so many amazing health benefits to moving and getting those endorphins flowing. But I think, again, the screens play a part. So, one thing
I
that,
know, I was gonna say they
yeah,
love devices. You know, these
yes,
things are there. They're like a big part.
totally. And so I think one thing that it just has been helpful in our house, especially hot Arizona summers, nobody wants to be outside, is we're doing the whole like, okay, you can have this much time on the screen, but then you need to take a break and you need to swim, or you need to read, or you need to shoot on your mini basketball hoop, or you need to find something to do that's either moving your body or your brain with the reading, just to kind of get that movement. So I think we have to be
Yeah.
creative in how we do that. Obviously, based on
Yeah.
where you live, if you've got bad winters like we did in the Midwest, that winter's going to be your hard time.
I know. You know what? And that's one that you do really have to kind of get creative, because when I think about a high schooler, if they're not already engaged in some
Yes.
type of physical activity, whether
Mhm.
they're an athlete
Yeah.
or, you know, they work or they do something where they are kind of physically doing something. You know, I think about, you know, I had an athlete, I've got three kids. Had an athlete, two athletes, and then one of my daughters, she wasn't into athletics, she wasn't into, you know, like dance or anything
Mhm.
like that. She was a reader, and she was very social, but she, you know, like, you weren't going to get her, she didn't even want to learn how to ride a bike. Like,
Yeah.
she just was not interested in that
Mhm.
either. And um and it was so interesting, I was surprised that she just had, she was like, I don't want to, which
Mhm.
was, I thought that everybody had to ride, like, I thought that was just like one of those things that everybody had to do.
It's a rite of
She had no
passage.
interest at all. She was none, no interest at all. But you know, and it was like, okay, how do we, you know, it's like, so for some kids, like, I know that there are some that are
Yeah.
completely video game, and they can stay in that seat and play
Yeah.
video game all summer long.
Yeah.
Um, and so, you know, it is getting creative, and how do you engage them in anything physical at all? You know, when they get to a certain age where they're like, you know, hey, mom, dad, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yep.
Leave me alone. I'm not interested. You know what I mean? Like, how do you how do you get them to be active when they get to a place or to an age where they're,
Yeah.
you know, pretty much like, I don't want you to tell me to do
Yeah.
that, you
I
know?
think, for us, like our son, both of our kids play basketball, but our son especially, like, he found the pool so boring. So we're like, well, what if we got like a basketball hoop for the pool and you could shoot hoops and play basketball from the pool? That was a game changer. So I think finding something that they're already interested in and kind of, leaning into that,
Involved with
can
it.
be really
Mhm.
helpful. But I think
Yeah.
too, like, our daughter, she's just this summer decided to lift weights on her own at home, which is great. And I'm like, well, where did that come from? Well, they had started strength training with her basketball team. So that kind of carried over. I think, she sees me working out at home. So I think it's probably a combination, and probably just their desire and interest level too. But I think if they're doing something they like, it's
Mhm.
easier.
Makes a difference. No, very true. Very true. So how do you you know, what, or how do you handle resistance or skepticism, or do you have to, from teens who might be hesitant to even embrace like holistic practices? Do you have any tips for, parents who might want to encourage it and say, hey, I think this might be good for you, but they might be resistant?
Yeah, I think, gosh, I think it's hard because teenagers are becoming independent. They're kind of becoming their own person, and we don't ever want to force something because then that's going to have the opposite effect. So I think just being gentle and being curious and find out, why are you opposed to it? What's the resistance? And trying to kind of get to the root of what's really going on. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's um, hesitation, maybe they're overwhelmed and they can't add one more thing, and kind of working through to kind of dissolve that would probably be the most helpful. I feel like all the teens that I have worked with have been very excited. They've
Yeah.
always connected, and that hasn't been an issue. So I think that's why I struggled with that question, because I'm like, gosh, I don't know.
No, I totally get it. I totally get it. So, Melissa, how do you stay kind of updated with like latest trends and research in holistic health, and how does that influence your coaching and different methods that you use when working with teens?
Yeah, my email is flooded daily with updates from different health organizations and sources, and it's a little bit too much sometimes. So managing that, but I think too, like my school does a really great job of providing updates on, these are things that we're seeing, these are things that are happening, these are some trends to be aware of. So I think definitely staying connected and being well informed and educated is a huge piece, because health isn't changing, but the world is. So we need to figure out how to integrate the health into the landscape of the world as it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, this has been awesome. Well, tell me this, because I always, like it seems like our time always seems to go by so quickly. You have been absolutely amazing. But what resources or tool do you recommend for students? I definitely want to make sure that everyone can connect with you. So we definitely have your link, but do you want to share your website and connectivity points, how people can get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to find me is my website. It's free, the number two, the letter B, coaching.com. I've got resources for teens, I've got resources for women, I've got links to some of my favorite products. I have my books on there. I also have all the places I am on social: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest. That might be it, but you can find all of that there.
Free to be coaching.com. You can find Melissa Rowe. Melissa, it has been my absolute pleasure. But before I let you go, I always like to ask everybody, for what would you, for those teens or parents of teens that are wanting to really kind of dive into holistic health and well-being, what would you say are the top, your three biggest pieces of advice for change makers?
I think be patient, because it's a process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And we live in such a quick fix society, such a microwave mentality where we want things right
Yeah.
now. So I think see through the long game, because it is a long game. These are habits and things we're building on for life. And hopefully we have a lot of life. So I think definitely, that's a piece. I think the other thing is to celebrate the wins. I love to talk about habits and habit stacking, and small hinges open wide doors. So even just the smallest thing, like if you or your team does something, celebrate that. Like I think we don't celebrate our wins enough. So make sure that you're kind of creating a culture of celebration. And I think the other thing is be curious.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. Well, all I want to thank you for tuning in today with Melissa Rowe with Free to Be Coaching. Make sure you check her out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere that she is. Free to Be Coaching with Melissa Rowe. Melissa, thank you again for being here. I have had a delight listening and chatting with you on today. It has been my pleasure. We'll have to have you come back again.
That would be great. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we connected. I loved it.
Absolutely. And audience, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Reimagine You Lab podcast with me, MG. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Share this episode with your friends, family, colleagues, and anyone that you think needs some, that can learn something from our coach today, who has shared teens and helping them become healthy, improving their health and well-being. Holistic health and life coach Melissa Rotha joined us tonight. Thank you so much, and I will see you here next Friday. Have a great one.